Hello everyone, welcome to this week's subscriber question of the week. And today's question comes from a subscriber named Mohammed Mohsin. Again, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. If you're not familiar with how the subscriber question of the week works, well then you can check out the description box, which explains it. It's pretty easy, pretty simple, you'll get it pretty quickly. So, Mohammed asked the question, you guys voted on it, and it is: what are the causes of sleep apnea? So sleep apnea is essentially just the inability to catch your breath, to be able to breathe normally when you're sleeping. And there are a number of reasons for sleep apnea, to be completely honest. So I'm not going to I'm not going to roll through every single one of them, but there are some common reasons. So I'm going to go over 3 of them. The first one is obesity. Now you might think, okay, well, what does that have to do with anything when it relates to your breathing, other than maybe huffing and puffing up some stairs? But in reality, when it comes down to it, when you are obese, especially at BMIs over like 35, 40, when you're getting up into that morbid obesity, you're getting a lot of fat around this upper respiratory airway, and that blocks, that creates an inability for you to be able to breathe. I mean, just simply, especially when you're in a supine position, which is when you're lying down, then you have an inability to breathe. And so you'll notice that people stop breathing for a moment, and then sometimes they wake up, or hopefully they wake up, or in some way their body adjusts so that they take a huge gasp of air because for a few moments they weren't getting any oxygen. That's essentially just a straight case of sleep apnea. Another big reason is enlarged tonsils. So tonsils are a part that actually, if you open your mouth and look in a mirror, you can actually see your tonsils if you haven't had them removed. And if they're too large, there's a mucous membrane over your tonsils which actually protect you from different germs, viruses, bacteria, all kinds of other things as well. And if they're too large, they can actually obstruct that airway as well. And again, especially when you're in a supine position, when you're lying down. Regardless of whichever one you end up suffering from, it's usually going to affect a person when they're lying down. And the third one is actually far more rare, and it's the one that is least treatable, it's least curable, and that is a neuromuscular disorder of some sort. So we have these neurons that innervate our musculature in our airway and across our entire body. I mean, me just moving right here has a lot to do with musculature, or just movement in general has a lot to do with musculature. So when you're breathing, that is a factor. You need those neural innervations, and when you don't get that signal being transduced from your brain or your spinal cord to your lungs, then you're not getting that airway, you're not getting that expansion and that reduction, especially through the diaphragm, which is what you would get from restful sleep. Now that is actually a particular type of sleep apnea called central sleep apnea, and that's because it's related typically to the central nervous system, or at least that's my understanding of why they named it that. So what can you do in all 3 of these cases? Well, in one of them, obesity, obviously just lose weight. It's pretty simple. You get less fat mass around your neck, around this front section of your neck, well then you're going to be able to breathe easier. Simple as that. The second one is have your tonsils removed. I know it's not exactly fun. Tonsillectomy can be, well, it can be not fun at all. It's especially when you're trying to eat food, trying to survive. But sleep apnea can be a really serious condition, and if you have to, then that is the best alternative. And the third scenario honestly kind of comes down to genetics sometimes, or you just have a traumatic injury that occurs to your spinal cord, and that neuromuscular failure, that's something that sometimes we just can't treat, we can't cure, at least not with the current medicine that we have today. So hopefully that answered the question for you, Mohammed. I don't know, I mean, of course you asked several different questions related to sleep apnea, hopefully understanding where some of those reasons come from, as well as what you can do about them. Weight is probably the biggest reason why people suffer from sleep apnea, but there are far more reasons than just the 3 that I mentioned in this video. And finally, to round this out, the 3 people that are going to have their questions featured on the poll question that you guys can vote on whichever one you want, whichever question you think is most interesting that I can answer next week, are Pendant Turnips, Christopher from Patreon, and Nikolai Steventon Lorenzen. That was a mouthful, Nikolai. I like your name though. So those are the 3 people, and with that said, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I will see you, hopefully, have the pleasure of seeing you in the very next video. Have a good one, guys.